the scene and give some context to the orchestra, I'm sure many of you are aware of our activity, but we're built on the belief that extraordinary music should be available to everyone, everywhere. We achieve this through experimenting, pushing boundaries, and involving our audiences as closely as possible, but that hasn't always been in an online context. We were established in 1904 as one of the first orchestras that was shaped by its musicians, so we're a self-governing orchestra. The majority of our board are players, although external support as ever is required. Since then, generations of remarkable talents have built the LSO's reputation for uncompromising quality and inspirational repertoire. We have a family of artists, including music director Sir Simon Rattle and conductor laureate Michael Tilson Thomas. And last year, we announced that Sir Antonio Papano will take up the realm of chief conductor in 2024. We're the resident orchestra at the Barbican Centre, this beautiful brutalist concrete jungle in the heart of the city. But that hall only enables 1,900 people to experience the performance, so we have to find ways to extend our reach outside the concert hall. It's our duty as a charity and publicly funded, and we feel this is such an important way to really enliven and open the doors to our music making. So education and outreach is an integral part of the LSO's DNA, and we've been doing this work for over 30 years. It exists to offer inspiring musical experiences to people of all ages and backgrounds who won't necessarily have had much contact with classical music and our musicians. And we include these education participants in all our high-profile events, such as our international touring, really to, again, just demonstrate that belief of music education as a foundation for music making and for attracting new audiences. We're also really, we've lobbied for many years to represent the UK arts, and major international touring is such an important part of our work. So we've flown that flag internationally. We were the first British orchestra to visit the USA in 1912. In fact, we were due to go on the Titanic, but a delay in touring dates meant that we had to change our schedule. Our history would have been very different had that not be the case. We also toured to South Africa in 1956, Japan in 1963. And in 2019, we were the first European orchestra to perform in Vietnam to an astonishing 60,000 people. And through that work, we've evolved to have our own recording label, LSO Live. And we're the content creator and producer for the orchestra. And our work and our role within the organisation is to magnify that work of our colleagues on stage. So here are two examples to support our international touring. The last visit we had to China, we launched WeChat and local social media services to support that touring activity. We created additional content pre, during and post tour. On the other side, you'll see the work that we created around our first ever visit to Latin America, a different focus on digital services here, because again, responding to that local territory, we focused very much on Spotify and Deezer to ensure that we were engaging with those local audiences. And since 2015, the LSO Live has also evolved to create additional captured content as well. We have a huge catalogue now of live performances. And similar to the previous speakers at RI, YouTube has been a really large component of that. Again, just ensuring that we had a captured audience that's very different from our concert-going audience. But we're very agnostic in our approach as well. Because of that element of international audiences, we do focus on a range of different digital services. So Tax1, for example, is very much a German-speaking digital platform, and we've worked very closely with them, building up our German audiences, again, in response to our touring programme. Mezzo is a French owned company, and we've worked with them since 2012. And again, very much a kind of a focused French-speaking audience, which hasn't cannibalized, therefore, our English-speaking territories and focus. But yeah, YouTube has been a huge component. And certainly when it came to 2020, it was a huge value to us having that engaged audience when suddenly life changed. So we come to 2020 and lockdown, and suddenly our self-governing orchestra is very exposed. They're self-employed. We all know that that community found it incredibly difficult to get financial support. So the objective for the LSO was to ensure that we could sustain our income for the members of the orchestra at a meaningful level, and to retain the knowledge and expertise of the staff by protecting jobs as far as possible. We're very fortunate. Yes, our residency is based at the Barbican, but we also do have an education centre, LSO St Luke's, on Old Street, which is primarily our rehearsal space and our education community outreach space. So we suddenly, this space became invaluable to us. We decided very early on to upgrade our camera systems so that we could ensure there was a regular concert program for our online audience. And we started with YouTube, and also creating a regular output of content from that catalogue that we owned, having that IP. And suddenly, for the first time ever, our education program had to think about online content and what we could do there. So I wanted to give you a little example of really the very early days of lockdown with the musicians at home, and how we could create some fun, engaging educational content.
Simon?
Yeah?
Simon? You missed the rehearsals. We can't do the concert without you.
Am I supposed to be doing that now?
Yes. The orchestra's waiting.
I missed. Oh, I'm really sorry. Look, I'll be right with you. I've got my baton. I'll be with you. Sorry.
Okay, so you'll have seen that was presented as always playing, and this was the kind of the message that we wanted to get across during that whole period. And as I say, YouTube is incredibly important to us. We were able to encourage people to donate, and we were getting really meaningful kind of revenue through that. And just that and trying to have that engagement with the audiences was incredibly important, particularly because whilst we had an online audience through the recording label, our typical concert-going audience in London really weren't terribly digitally savvy, so we had to take them on that journey. And this takes me to my kind of next case study around our relationship with the cross-arts platform Marquee. So we realised quite early on that we're going to need to think in a more hybrid way. There is reticence amongst our older concert-going audience to returning to the concert hall, although forward wind to now, we're very pleased with how that was returned. But there are still, a third of our regular concert-going audiences who are afraid to come back, and it's going to take time for them to feel more confident. So whilst YouTube has been incredibly important to us, we wanted to find that balance of free to view and pay to view as well. And the messaging and the way that we present our concerts are slightly different and distinct depending on the platform. So Marquee actually launched as a cross-arts platform late 2018, and we had some small, relatively small catalogue of repertoire with them already. But during 2020, they became more adventurous with their programming and actually were very keen to co-commission repertoire as well. And suddenly we were able to film concerts purely for the screen. And that meant that we could present slightly different repertoire. I think we felt more confident about engaging with diverse repertoire as well, so that we could give context and set the scenes. And that's been a really fruitful partnership. But what we've been really pleased about as well is that YouTube, we were typically finding 18 to 35-year-olds around the world, and they were very engaged with the repertoire. But we've actually also found that Marquee, we've been able to translate those people from YouTube to a paying subscription. And I think that's incredibly exciting and gives us great confidence for feeling that we can have this hybrid model going forward. We also have that international element as well. So not only have we built confidence with our UK London audiences, we can see that a lot of the English speaking territories, there's strong engagement there as well. So as we do resume our touring, this is also a very important part of our our marketing makeup as well. So we're seeing around 30% of our audiences in the US, and that's always been a very strong market for us. So I think there's some really strong and encouraging messages that we're seeing through that partnership with Marquee. And we've just signed a 2-year deal with them. So for the next 2 seasons, there will be a rich element of concerts that will be available on that service. And then a second case study is around the French-speaking digital platform, Vialma. So this is, again, a slightly different model and one that ensures that we have a strong, different audience around the world as well, this time very much of the French-speaking. So this initial project came about through our ex-residency. They already had a relationship with Vialma, and Vialma is very much about engaging and prolonged engagement. So they have a very strong editorially led content team. They also have a rich audio catalogue as well. So we've worked very closely with them on developing not only streamed video programs, but also supporting curated playlists and a lot of written word as well. So I've got just a little video just to set the scene here, because one of their interactive elements is the watch party.
Vialma subscribers and LSO lovers, greetings from the wonderful Grand Theatre in Aix-en-Provence.
So this service has really, they've devised compelling musical experiences, and it does genuinely encourage longer dwell time. So we've had our players, in some ways it is similar to YouTube chat, that our players have been involved, but it's just that additional academic level of engagement that has really responded the audience has responded very well to. And we're finding that that dwell time is genuinely there as well. So the average is around watching 80% of the full concert, which, given most of our concerts are between 60 and 70 minutes, is a very different viewing experience from that we found on our YouTube programs. And the LSO members feel really engaged by it as well. I think one of the things we've really found during the pandemic, and we want to utilize and capture going forward, is that engagement with the individual members of the orchestra. The audiences seem to really respond to that, and our principals have found it to be a really exciting thing as well. Certainly with the watch parties on Vialma, our principals have said it's amongst the best online events that they've ever been involved in. So we really want to harness that interest from the players as much as from our audiences as well.
Vialma subscribers.
And really, So what do we take from all of this? The pandemic has definitely accelerated the digital confidence of our concert-going audiences. They want that continued engagement with the orchestra beyond the concert hall. We all know that we have to pay for this as well. So we want to find those subscription services that the audiences respond well to, balanced with this pay-to-view element and continuing free-to-view as well. So YouTube will be an important element of our work going forward. We want to continually have regular output there. We've developed YouTube Sundays, which is not only a marketing element to the marquee subscription services, but it's content in its own right as well. We are interested in YouTube Shorts and how that does also evolve our audiences. So you'll see that content is coming through. But also what we're really excited about is the educational online initiatives that really weren't there before the pandemic. And we know that we need to think differently in the way that we approach our international work. We can't continue to have the carbon footprint we've had historically, and digital is a really important way for us to be able to keep in touch with our international audiences whilst we can't tour. So I want to share a really heartwarming project that we did with our Japanese partners whilst during the pandemic, and what we see as the potential optimism for the future and how we can work with our partners going forward.
Well, because of COVID, we couldn't visit Japan, but instead we moved pretty much the whole program online. So we did a training session with Japanese musicians, which I think had the advantage of enabling us to meet musicians from a wider area than just Tokyo. We worked with teachers, and again, I think the same thing happened there. And really wonderfully, we reconnected with the musicians that we'd met when we were in Japan in previous years. And I was able to train them so that they could deliver the workshops that I would have delivered had I been able to go into school. So we very slickly moved the whole thing online, and we were helped in that by the fact that our web platform, LSO Play, has just been translated into Japanese, so we were able to draw on the resources that are already online. This exchange has been hugely meaningful for us. We love Japan, we love visiting Japan, we love working with the British Council. It's been a wonderful partnership.
Okay, so yeah, Rachel says it very succinctly. It has been an incredible partnership, and it's something that we will be looking to do going forward. As I say, we need to be mindful of our carbon footprint. Translations have been incredibly important consideration for us during these past 2 years. So our education platform, LSO Play, has been translated not only into Japanese, but also into Spanish as well. Really taking on board the fact that we know that we're unlikely to be able to tour to the likes of Latin America on a regular basis, certainly in the future, but we were able to capture a really strong audience whilst we were there on tour, and we want to be able to ensure that there is that relationship for us going forward. So the business model is certainly changing for us post-pandemic. We still want those kind of local relationships, so we need to invest in things like translations, creating content that's unique for those local territories, and then ensuring that when we can tour, we already have an engaged audience when we visit. Other considerations for us, knowing that we're in this kind of hybrid environment, is how we do capture our recordings and our audio content. For several years, we've been recording in spatial, and certainly since the last 12 months, we found real interest from the likes of Apple and other services for that format. And I think that's going to only increase in relevance as we look into the metaverse and the way that the likes of Meta are engaging in that kind of audio format. also for us, it's that consumer driven element as well. Marquee has a really strong engaged audience because they are cross arts. I think we don't necessarily want to pigeonhole ourselves in purely classical music, because there is a wider audience there. And if we're encouraging people to subscribe to services, we want them to feel there's value in the subscription services that we're encouraging them to do so. And the other thing that we're considering really is around that creator economy as well. One of the reasons why we've engaged with the likes of Viama is because it's genuinely interactive. And I think we're seeing in the way the likes of TikTok, people need that, are really interested in that kind of creator economy. And that's something that we're really interested in. And again, having our own catalogue of IP controlled content means that we're able to explore that. And I think, what's really exciting is that there is a rich and dynamic range of platforms that we can all work with, and they provide different audiences around the world. And I think if we can have that international outlook, but also a kind of a local approach, that means that we'll be able to kind of keep audiences engaged.